Hey all, this is Judith of judithtomorrow.com, Judith Tomorrow Design. Welcome. We're going to do a new moon reading today. Um, Today's card for this new moon cycle is Last Stand. Now, I wasn't actually planning to do a reading today, but I woke up with such a sense of agitation and maybe anxiety this morning, which is not usual for me to wake up with that level of anxiety, that I was like, okay, so what is the deal that's going on? What is so intense that's going on right now? I mean, other than the obvious, what is the energy of the earth? What is the energy of the world right now at this particular moment, this particular junction? And I drew this card, Last Stand, which is sort of it's a card I've drawn before, I think, on this station, but the communication that I'm understanding about this is like on steroids a little bit. Last Stand on steroids. So Last Stand is about one structure ending and another structure beginning. It's actually the gap between the old structure and the new structure, where there's this um, falling apart, or capacity for feeling things are falling apart, because even though you've let go of the previous structure, you do not have a new one to hold you. And so it can be very disoriented and very confusing. This is something I think we're all going through collectively right now, but this particular new moon, this particular day of this particular new moon, announcing this cycle of the moon, is emphasizing that we are really in a space of disintegration. I heard this word today from somebody else, and it was the first time it occurred to me that I heard it about disintegration is the opposite of integration. And I'm always talking about integration. I'm always talking about a new piece of information and how to synthesize it into yourself, how to bring it in and integrate it into yourself. And this is a time of disintegration. And when I checked in on the quality of the energy right now, it is almost as if the joints of, this sounds awful, the joints of the world, or the structure, the joints of the structure of many earth qualities is coming apart. The glue that has held them together, is the word that came to mind, is actually anti-glue. It's like, it's not just like not there or not strong enough, but it's actually this quality that is pushing things apart. It's like like anti-glue. So, which sounds sort of intense, and I think it is the source of like that sense of anxiety. But the real feeling that I got as I thought about this card and how it's showing up in my day to day is the energy that it takes right now to like try and put things again together, to try and forcibly make connections. It takes a huge amount of energy, because you're really working against the basic process that the earth is going through right now. So, so for example, I was looking at a pile of stuff that's supposed to go to Goodwill, and it's been sitting by my door, and I'm like, I can just put that in the car. And it was the energy that I felt that would be involved in the process of trying to put something into place right now, versus just letting it go, letting it just do its own thing right now. It was not worth the effort. There will be a point in the future where it will suddenly be instantaneously easier to like pick that pile up and put it into the car and move it on to its next space. But today is not the day for that. There are many projects as well that, it's like the beginnings of the structure. It's like how to put that structure together is some of the things on the list of things to do. But the energy is not there for that today. Today is a much better day to work on projects that already have a certain level of solidity, have their own sort of even keel movement into the future, working on the details of that or bringing things to conclusions, even just getting those structures sort of cleaned up and in place instead of actually trying to formulate new ones. So another aspect where this shows up for me or showed up for me, and I think this is a really good practice if you are struggling with this kind of energy, because it can be really disconcerting to get comfortable in this gap and comfortable with this feeling of things falling apart, is to do practices that involve pausing between things. When you finish an activity, instead of moving directly into the next one, take a moment. I mean, really take a moment. Take a moment to stop, to complete, and to feel what it's like to have nothing right there before you start the next thing. There is a lushness and a spaciousness that a lot of the time we want to skim over, like a little bump in the road, right? Boink! We just went from one thing to another thing, and there was a little gasp as it switched, right? We want to pass over this little space because it can make us feel uncomfortable, but it can also be, as we get used to it, the source of incredible amounts of energy, incredible amounts of spaciousness, a relaxation, a reset, a breath, coming back to ourselves. Whatever it is in that gap that we tend to avoid, and a lot of the time I do think it is a coming back to ourselves that we tend to avoid, taking stock of how we're actually feeling, then we start to become comfortable overall with this energy. And this energy, which ultimately has huge amounts of creative potential, is kind of the energy du jour for a while, you know? It's like you might as well get used to this falling apart structure, because it's where we're going to be going and living on a fairly consistent level. We'll be revisiting this energy during the process of the next 4 or 5 years, I would guess, at least. Unless that's just, it's also perhaps just the human nature, human reality. Another place that I saw it show up in my life, and a friend of mine, actually, I learned this from watching her eat, is that she always does this pause after she has created a pile of food, amazing food from this particular person, and she'll hold the bowl, and she'll put one hand on her chest and one hand around the bowl, and she'll just be in that space where you don't even have to put your hand on her. Sometimes she'll just hold the bowl. And just taking that, especially if you're a person who's sort of cooks a lot for a lot of people, which I am, that tendency to move straight from like cooking into eating, because at that point you're hungry, right? You actually have to stop and you feel that space. And it's a delicious, amazing space, and it helps the digestion a lot. That's a metaphor, I guess. Anyway, so those are the suggestions I would make for working with this energy. This energy is going to be present in the full cycle of the moon, from this new moon to the next new moon, climaxing about the full moon, where it really sort of expresses its full self. And if you feel like it right now, just take a few moments. Instead of rushing off to the next thing that you're going to do after you see this, take a few moments, take a moment right now and feel the space. And that's it. All right. I hope you have a beautiful day. Take care of yourself. Bye bye.